We got lucky because our third party lender was okay with sending the money directly to us.
And that's a no-no. It's important to know if
And
you get a yes from the loan officer, they get paid on commission. The more loans they sell, the more money they make. The risk manager, they're going to say no to all sorts of stuff that the sales rep says yes to.
and at the end of the day, that's what stopped us in two of our deals.
Okay, part two, Morby methods. The thing that we want to answer is what sort of questions can you ask before you, like, how do we not jump the gun? It's really easy to get excited about a potential Morby method. What questions can we ask early on in the process to stop from tricking ourselves, right? It's really easy to put on the rose colored glasses and just imagine that every seller finance deal with a high down payment is a Morby method. How do you avoid falling into that trap? Because that's not true at all. Not every high down payment seller finance is a Morby method. There's plenty of things that could and should be considered before you go down the path and start spending time or money on putting together this deal type.
Mhm.
Underwriting, right? Your underwriting is going to show you that because you're going to have to consider your debt service to a bank now and not just working a seller finance deal where you could work 0% interest into the price or a
Yep.
lower interest rate that makes it
Oh,
affordable.
I'll just get a DSCR loan. It'll cash flow as an Airbnb.
Nope.
Uh,
DSCR will
mhm.
consider long-term rents, not short-term rents.
There are products that do short-term rents, but at the end of the day, the safest and easiest way to do any creative deal is to make sure that it is cash flowing long term, and then you work on the other strategies just in
Right.
case you can fall back on it. But
So if it
let's
won't cash flow as a long-term rental, it's not even worth pursuing.
in my opinion, it's not. And that's our personal buy box is that if we're looking at something short term and it does not cash flow long term as a fail safe, it's not worth our time and energy.
And I tell people that in
100%.
general underwriting. Hey,
Yep.
if you don't have two exit strategies, one of them at least breaks even, you probably don't have a deal unless you have a whole portfolio of this same type of thing and it's a dead solid, locked in, gonna succeed.
I would agree. The other piece of this is we talked about blind spots in our part one. The blind spot that we had is that, oh, we could come in here with $0 in with no money in. But is the return worth the time and energy and effort to manage the asset after the deal is done?
And you better
Most of
not
the time,
underwrite with no management in place.
exactly. And for our purposes, the one that we have purchased, Mike has been doing the bulk of the management. It's been a pain in the butt. It's not worth the small return that we can receive for now. And the pro forma is good, but is it great? Is it worth that energy and effort? I'll leave that up to Mike to answer, I guess.
Projections say yes. Nick made a good point. And I'm managing a manager here. I'm not dealing with the tenants. I'm not dealing with all the maintenance issues. I'm managing the manager, but it was a value add portfolio. So there's a lot going on to get things up to pro forma, which projections say will be worth the time and effort. So time will tell.
Explain value add portfolio.
Every apartment needed work, needed updating, needed cleaning up on the outside of these. You know,
I, I
some
just want to hit that because
of
value
them
add
needed
portfolio
siding.
sounds good. It sounds like a good
Right.
thing, but it's like, no, no, no. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. It
And it,
wasn't
it is
just
a good thing, but the problem with the value add is that even when we add the value, I don't think our ARV is that much higher than what we purchased it at. The rents are going to be higher for sure, but the area that we purchased it in Victoria, Texas, it's not a huge, high income area. It's probably more of like a C plus market. Um, and in that case, there's not a lot of appreciation.
Yeah, the cash flow should be there. The appreciation should cover what we're putting into it, but it's not like, oh man, we made $300,000 in 2 years in appreciation. It'll probably be something a lot more stable that we'll hold on to long term versus sell because we won't have or refinance because we won't have this crazy appreciation number. But we looked at it as cash flow is king, and according to what our property manager is showing us for rents in the area, and she's already been getting some inquiries because people that know the current tenants are hearing, "Oh, you have an apartment available?" So, it shouldn't be an issue getting that cash flow where we want it once we do the work that we need to do to the property. But as
Yeah.
Caleb said, value add can sound, "Oh, I put an addition on. Oh, I do something simple." We have tenants in place. It's hard to get work done with tenants in place because they're sleeping there every night. So it's definitely been a process.
A lot of turnover. Once someone moves out, we go and rehab it and move somebody in for a higher price. But that's just one part of the blind spots. The other blind spots is that we got so excited, like we talked about in part one, to do a simple deal like that, that even though the return is staring us right in the face was decent, right? We didn't realize how much time, energy, and effort the transaction itself was going to take. So regardless of management afterwards, it took us what, 6 months? Almost?
Good grief.
Yeah,
Four?
it
Four,
was
four
probably
months.
4 months. But
What would you
here's
what
one
would you
thing.
expect as a default time frame for something like a Morby method? I would say no less than 60 days.
I actually don't know based on the new structure that we have if it's going to be that much more complicated. But with the old structure, yeah, 60 days was definitely the way we were looking at it. We thought we could potentially do it in 45. But that was a huge stretch because so many things got in our way. And the biggest issue that we had was the teams that we had involved, the third parties that we had involved, were not on the same page as us. They didn't understand what we were doing. They pretended like they understood what we were doing. And at the end of the day, they didn't feel comfortable with what we're doing. So we had to go find other team members and replace those third parties,
Right.
AKA
So one of the questions we can
seller.
ask early on is, are we going to be allowed direct access to the seller?
Mm.
If not, it's not worth pursuing because we need to be a solution to a problem that they have. Otherwise, they're not going to stick around because it's a weird transaction.
Right.
Another big problem we had that was unforeseen was the appraisal. So our lender's appraisal process was, I'm going to hire this nationwide third party company. They're going to source a local appraisal. Weeks down the line, we were finding out that the lender's department that handles that wasn't even reaching out to the local appraiser. So we're sitting here, hey, how come we haven't had the deferred maintenance reinspection? No answer, no answer. I call the local guy because I had his number just from getting in to the apartments. And he's like, they didn't tell me that the deferred maintenance was done. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So the communication there, the lender wasn't fully vested like we were on getting that deferred maintenance done and getting that reinspection so we could close.
Yeah. And then the other piece of all of that is making sure that we're in a position to do the deferred maintenance. And if we're really structuring these deals like we are supposed to be structuring them, when you have a lender, you can't treat it like a normal creative financing deal like we do every day in sub two. You can't just bring up that price point to bring your down payment lower or be super creative with how much money you have to pay off the seller over 10 years. And the reason why is because that appraisal is going to get in your way. So if you increase that purchase price, you have to make sure you're already way below your value to be able
Yep.
to have that room. And we didn't do that homework. We weren't sitting
Yeah.
there being like, well, this is going to be worth, obviously it's worth $1 million. So the $1 million is fine. And we're contracting at 900. So we can keep moving this up or down or whatever. We didn't have that flexibility here. The lender was like, no, this is only worth 950. We had to get creative and figure out a way to overcome that. And the seller again needed this solution, so she was okay
Yeah.
to jump on it. But
I was going to say that may affect your cash to seller or the amount the seller has to finance at close of escrow too. So asking yourself, will this appraise for what I'm assuming it's worth? And what do I do if it doesn't appraise for what it's worth? And that's where a consult with us comes in. Let us help you with that process. We've been through it. We know the questions to ask. We know the gotchas. We're doing this to get you guys the right mindset. If I'm going to do a Morby method, there's a bunch of stuff I need to be aware of, but there's also a resource I can turn to. The easy button, the fast forward, is turn into Creative TC.
we had a couple conversations with people that are like, "Oh yeah, I don't have the money to make up for the gap." And that was another question we didn't consider before we even jumped in on the contract. How are we going to come up with that down payment and closing costs to show the lender that we can fund this deal and then get that money back from the seller on the back end? We just assumed a third party lender was going to be okay because
Yeah.
we talked about it with people, but we
And that the
didn't.
first party lender was going to be okay with a third party lender.
Right. And
Yep,
we
the
quickly
key.
found out that that was not the case.
Yeah. They
And
don't
it's
like
more
gap lenders.
specifically the underwriter, because the loan officer is going to tell you, "Oh, that's fine," and the
Thank you for
underwriter is
that.
going to say, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that. It's important to know the difference between what is effectively a salesperson who gets paid for saying yes because they want to get a deal done, and the person whose job is to risk manage and say no to things. And if
Yep.
you get a yes from the salesperson, the loan officer, they get paid on commission. The more loans they sell, the more money they make. They're going to say, "Yes, I can do that. Yes, we can do that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that." Whatever. The risk manager, the underwriter, whose job is to disqualify people who are not a good risk, who don't fit the specific things, they're going to say no to all sorts of stuff that the sales rep says yes to.
That goes with the title company as well. So it's not
That's
just
true.
the lender itself. Title companies, they have title reps just like loan officers, similar going out there getting business, trying to represent people. But the underwriters for those title companies do the same thing as the underwriters for the lenders to make sure that the deal is sound. They make sure they're not crossing any legal boundaries. And at the end of the day, that's what stopped us in out of our deals was that the third party lender didn't feel comfortable being a part of it.
Yep.
So
And that's just the same, right? If I, as the business owner, if one of my team says yes to a deal,
mm,
great price, great all this stuff, and I see something about it that's like, no, this is going to get entangling, could pull us into court, or any of this other stuff, I'm going to say, sorry, administrative, no, refund, whatever, go somewhere else, find something else to do. And that's what happens is you got the frontline sales reps saying yes to stuff. And so when you say, I want to do this thing, they're going to say, cool, sounds good. Let's do it.
and we got lucky because our third party lender was okay with sending the money directly to us.
And that's a no-no. So what's the best way to get a funding partner on board for one of these transactions?
They need
What
to
do
be
I
a
need to know if I'm planning on doing one and I know I need to lean on a third party to bring my cash on the front end? What do I need to what relationship do I need to build and how do I structure that?
you need to build a relationship with a capital partner that has the money to cover the gap, whatever asset you're looking for to do Morby method, and
That's
to
the
bring them
entry fee, that's the
in.
down payment to seller, all the closing costs, down
Yep.
payment on the main loan,
All
all
the
of
The
it.
money you have to
reserves.
bring to, there's going to
Oh
be
yeah,
reserves
yeah, because
involved for
the
sure.
lender's going to want to see reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing one right now through Creative TC where, the individual who is doing the Morby, they have the funds, most of the funds in their bank account, and they partnered up with another capital partner who's part of their LLC that has the additional amount of money, who is a lower member of their LLC. I think that we were calling it a junior member of some sort. And essentially, they just have to show their finances and have a background check. That's it,
Mm.
just to make sure that they're not serial killers, which is good. We want to make sure that we're not working with serial killers. It's good stuff. But that's the thing that he has to bring to the table. And at the end, that money could get passed on through him because he's part of the LLC into the title company because they're all connected. It's not a separate entity funding another entity here. And
Yeah,
then that turned
it's
around.
not that the second person, the funder, needs to send the funds to party A, the person with the deal. You don't need to send funds because the lender's going to say, "Show me your bank records," and those bank records are going to show a deposit of $75,000 or something, and they're going to say, "What's this?" "Oh, that's my
Mhm.
partner."
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's show his records. It doesn't matter that you have the 75K in your account. They're going to say, "Oh, this is less than X months old. Where did it come from?"
Mhm.
It came from over here. Okay, so let's see their records, and let's see that it's less than 2, 3, 4 months old in their account. We need to see that it's seasoned money or that there's a reason it came. If you sold a property and you have a buttload of money, that makes sense. But if you just suddenly have a big chunk of money, you have to be able to explain where it came from because they don't want you to borrow funds with borrowed funds. So somebody's butt has to be on the line who actually owns the money. Somebody has to be at risk of loss. Somebody has to have skin in the game, and that's what they're after. So if you have a $75,000 deposit, they're going to chase it down. Oh, it came from this person. He's my partner. Okay, cool. Well, it's only a month old in his account too. Where did he get it? Oh, turns out he's actually, so this is something you better know. Is your funding partner like a gator wrestler or somebody who's like borrowing funds from other people or collecting it? Where did it come from? It needs to be original source funds that a lender will approve as somebody's actual skin in the game because they'll chase that as far as it goes. Oh, well, he borrowed it from four other people or he got it from four other people. Well, how? For what? He sold a
Yeah.
car. He borrowed 15K. Oh, he borrowed it. Sorry, done.
Yep.
That's borrowed funds.
Borrowed funds into borrowed funds. I like that. It's a
They
good
don't
way.
like it.
Yeah. No, and it's a complicated structure, but if you simplify it to the point where all of the money you need to bring to the table is part of the one entity that you're purchasing the property with, the asset with, and you're not talking about seller financing, you're talking about, the seller investing in your business, it becomes a little bit more simple and a little bit more streamlined from there.
Yeah, we need to control that narrative. I think one of my points in the previous comment was they don't need to send the money to your account. If they're joining the deal, if they're a partner on the deal, the money can just stay in their account. The less movement, the better. It's more stable. Show us where your down payment comes from. Well, I got 5,000 over here and he's got 70,000 over here.
Yeah. Simple, easy, to the point. They
All the
don't
shuffling makes you look more risky. Be smooth.
And regardless of that, a lot of people they create entities with individuals, and then they create one bank account, and then they fund that bank account. We're saying that should be avoided. That's just adding an extra step because they're going to have to look at where that money came from originally anyway. Right.
Yep.
That bank account could be funded after the transaction has been completed. It doesn't need to be part of qualifying for the loan. The individuals who are part of the LLC will be qualified separately and will be underwritten together.
That's right. That's good.
Love it. Part 3 coming up.